What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This here is Legitical Response, and I got some more Piers Morgan debates coming in for you guys today. I love these debates. These debates are just so fun to do. Kind of get outside of my normal comfort zone, covering news articles and giving you guys the facts. But, you know, I just love these because I love to debunk some of the insanity going on in leftists' brains. Yeah, that's right. Leftists have insanity going on in their brains because some of the garbage that they spew out and give to everybody else is absurd on its face. For the most part, you know, sometimes they make some sense. You know, they got to. Every squirrel, even blind squirrels, get a nut from time to time, right? So, you know, every once in a while, leftists can just get it right, if you know what I mean. But some of these people, like most of the stuff they say, it's just absolute nonsense. It's divorced from reality, and they have no idea what's going on in their own brain, much less going on in reality. So, right quick, before we get into the debate, if I could get you guys to do me a giant, huge, large favor, smash that like button for me if you don't mind. I sure would appreciate that a whole hell of a lot. And if you're new around here and like these debates and want to stay informed with what's going on in the world and stay informed with how you're being manipulated, because that's generally what I do. I cover news articles and point out all the manipulations in these news articles. Subscribe to this channel if you don't mind. I would greatly appreciate that. We're trying to grow. We're trying to expand. We're trying to spread this information everywhere that we can because, folks, you're being inundated with misinformation constantly, and a lot of that comes from the corporate press, the mainstream news, NBC, ABC, CBS, and CNN, and all those places. So subscribe to this channel. Share this video with anybody and everybody. Like I said, I just do these debates for fun. My normal content covers more fact-based reality, if you will. So, without further ado, let's get into the debate. Here we go, y'all.
I think you're sort of overthinking this. You remind me a little bit of Michael Bloomberg, who was sat in front of Trump at the Al Smith dinner the other day, and for 28 minutes managed not to crack any facial expression whatsoever, even as Trump was rattling off a series of indisputably hilarious zingers. And I think it takes a lot of real effort to refuse.
Maybe he didn't find them funny.
Well, it just makes me laugh that Kamala Harris is all about finding the joy in life. There you've got Trump cracking funny jokes, and no one on your side wants to laugh, and we'll come to that in a bit.
I come from a family where I was raised on food stamps. I come from a family where people work minimum wage jobs. They don't get to dawn for an hour or so to get photo ops and walk away. That's not cool.
I'm just saying, if you can't watch Donald Trump frying fries in a McDonald's when he's never been seen cooking a thing in his entire life, and then serving it to punters as they turn up in cars, if you can't crack a smile and feel what Kamala would describe as the joy of that moment, there's something very humorless about you, isn't it?
Yeah. It's MAGA that keeps getting upset.
I'm thankful that McDonald's hires felons, because they do that in reality as well.
Okay, let me bring in Luke. You want to get him?
Yeah. Well, I will say that MAGA has been repeatedly expressing that they're upset that Kamala is having these fun moments. Oh, she's laughing weird, or stop dancing, there's serious problems. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy there, but I will say this McDonald's thing is the perfect example of how Trump gets away with what he does, because a bunch of people in the media play right into what he's doing, which I agree, a fun little photo op at McDonald's, a lot of people are going to find that likable, ignoring the actual substance, which is he gets asked about the minimum wage, he can't answer it because on policy he's a failure, so he has to rely on these sorts of stunts to get people to like him, and the media finds it so fascinating, so they forget days before the election what really matters.
But to be clear, you did find this. Just to be clear, you just said you found him likable.
I don't find him super likable, but I understand why a photo shoot like this appeals to people. That's exactly what he's trying to do. Distract from the fact that days before an election, he's promising to go after his political enemies with this enemies from within sort of comment. Distract from the fact that he's the most anti-democratic presidential candidate we've seen in
let me bring in
American politics. Distract from the fact that hundreds of economists are saying that Trump's plan would harm the economy.
Okay, let me bring in Larry. Larry, your response to this.
All right, so we got another example of one of these Democratic influence that are just towing the corporate press narrative line. They love how they say, oh, well, MAGA's the one that's being hypocritical here. They're always talking about the joy campaign. No, once again, misrepresenting exactly what we're saying here. Kamala Harris comes out. She can dance around and do whatever the hell she wants to. But when she comes out to these rallies and starts discussing policy, you can't understand what she's talking about because she speaks circuitously. She doesn't give any substance. She only talks about the hopes and the dreams and the aspirations of the American people, and we need to create an opportunity economy and blah, 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 and never actually says what we're going to do to fix the southern border, what we're going to do to create an opportunity economy. She'll come out and say $6,000 tax cuts. What else do you got, Kamala Harris? And that's what they're misrepresenting. That's what we're complaining about. Her circuitous talk, and there's no substance there. She says absolutely nothing. Now, once again, to be fair, with Donald Trump, he speaks in a, like he called it, a weave. Weaving his narrative, and he'll go over here, and he'll go over there. And sure, you might have to parse out policy from all of that, but at least Trump gives you policy. At least Trump comes out and says, yes, we're going to do a major tax cut. We're going to give tax breaks to everybody. We're going to, as a matter of fact, talking about getting rid of income tax. Right? Like, when has Kamala Harris done that? Kamala Harris comes out and copies Donald Trump, talking about no taxes on tips. Copies Donald Trump. At least Donald Trump gets out and says, we're going to finish that wall. We're going to stop these foreign wars. We're not going to fund foreign war anymore. This is garbage. We need to stop the killing, stop all the death and destruction going on in this world. And Kamala Harris is over here speaking circuitously. That's our concerns. That's what we're saying. She has nothing whatsoever.
Now, Misha, aside from the strange spectacle of Alec Baldwin making his comeback, which I think feels a little too soon, perhaps, the nature of her going on Fox News, I thought it was quite a ballsy move to do it. I've got to be reasonable credit to her for going on there. It got a massive audience, the biggest audience of any interview in the whole presidential race. Do you think it, in the end, though, was a good or not so good move for her?
She came to do exactly what she did. I think that pointing out Donald Trump's instigations of wanting to eradicate certain news networks, calling out individuals who he wanted to issue prosecutions of, who have spoken out against him or who didn't support him. She went on to do what she needed to do. And I think that in terms of going on Fox, yes, it has a big audience, but she wasn't necessarily trying to draw in an audience that is largely Trump and MAGA supporters. People know what Fox News is, as much as she was going into the house that Donald Trump built in many ways, the same place that has been sued multi-million dollars over for lying about election fraud in the 2020 election, and she shook up their house. That's what she intended to do during this campaign, and then she walked off. And I think that she did a very strong job of it. It was not going to be a friendly space. She knew that going in. That just is what it is. This was the first time she'd sat down with Fox during this entire cycle. And I think that it made a difference because it showcased that she wasn't afraid to have the conversation, but also that she walked away, just rose like the phoenix, as strong as she was when she walked in.
All right. You gotta love the delusion. You gotta love watching these people. That Fox interview did nothing good for Kamala Harris. Talking about she went in and shook stuff up and then walked away, rose like the phoenix. Huh? What are you talking about? She made a laughingstock out of the Democratic Party. That's what she did because she can't answer questions whatsoever, just like most politicians, but Kamala Harris is particularly good at not answering questions, if you know what I mean. Once again, going back to that, she speaks circuitously. You have no idea what the hell she's talking about, and that Fox News interview exposed that to everybody that watches Fox. Oh my God, that was the worst interview I think I've seen in my entire life. As a matter of fact, Kamala Harris has been doing interview after interview after interview after interview. That is the worst interview I've seen in my entire life. She gives us nothing whatsoever, but these people live in a delusion world where they go in and they're like, oh yes, she did good. She told him to stop talking. Like, in what world did that give you any substance? In what world did that help her campaign whatsoever? Right? If she would have come in and answered questions instead of saying, yes, I'm glad you asked a question about the southern border because that's an issue that we need to discuss, and we need to get this issue fixed. We need to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem, and then go on to speak about some Trump derangement garbage that has nothing to do with the southern border. Oh, we put up a bill and Donald Trump turned it down. Well, Donald Trump is not in Congress. That's right. Donald Trump may have some influence in Congress, but the bill failed because it was garbage, because it codified illegal immigration. That's why the bill failed. It's not because Donald Trump said no, and not because Donald Trump wanted to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. Donald Trump came into office, and he started fixing problem after problem after problem after problem. Right? He had to clean up a lot of garbage before he could even get anything done. Right? He tried to get that wall started, and he got pushed back, right? Like his own conference fought against him on the wall. I mean, what are you supposed to do about that? Right? Funding $20 billion for a freaking wall. And they can't even do that, right? But yet we can send hundreds of billions of dollars to fund war in a foreign nation at the drop of a hat. These people have no problem voting for garbage. $1.8 trillion deficit spending. They have no problem voting for that. $1.8 trillion. And then you want to say Donald Trump is the problem? Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. No, he's a threat to the Democratic Party's clinch their grip on power. That's what he's a threat to.
How about we just deal with the last, say, 2 years, where they printed a relentless amount of money. And if you know anything about economics, if you ever did Economics 101 in college, if you print money, then it is going to cause inflation. Your dollar will be worth less. And that's why every single person watching this in the United States of America knows that when they walk into whatever grocery store they go to, whether it's to buy a dozen eggs or it's a pound of beef or bread, it is significantly higher. And that is not, and Kamala's answer for that,
we have the lowest inflationary cost of anybody in the developed world.
She wants more governmental control over the economy.
No, she wants price gouging to end.
Over your lives.
Quickly, just please answer this for me then. Why is it that our economy, just by the objective metrics we use to measure economic performance, came out of the pandemic under Biden-Harris way stronger than our wealthy economy counterparts, and then inflation, we got it down way faster? This was a global phenomenon because of a global crisis that Trump mismanaged, thus exacerbated. And you exploit the painful facts of that moment. You exploit the painful facts of that moment for political purposes, when even on your point about printing money, sure, absolutely the case that that'll cause inflation or contribute to it. So then what do you say about, as Trump was leaving office, him dumping, he added twice that of Biden to the debt, even if you exclude the pandemic, by the way, but especially including it, and you want to push it all into Biden-Harris. You want to exclude from Trump's record the pandemic era, but include
but look, here's the problem.
Biden-Harris. It's ridiculous.
Look, here's the problem. You know, I'm not disputing some of what you said there. What I would dispute, though, is you're not really countering. Well, you're not really countering what Dave's central point is, which is most Americans, if not all Americans, if they think about what their weekly shop costs them today and compare it to the first few weeks and months of the Biden-Harris administration, it is indisputably a lot more expensive. And in the end, I think if they lose the election, if Kamala Harris doesn't win and Trump wins, I suspect, as always, it will be that economic reality, which is not to say the American economy is not performing well compared to many other countries. It is. You are the number one superpower in the world. But it doesn't change the fact that the cost of living for most Americans has gone through the roof in the last 3.5 years. It just has.
Totally, which is why it's a crying shame that people like Larry and people like Dave choose to mislead people about the cause of that, because they won't even engage with the point I just made about the global phenomenon.
Well, you don't want to put any blame onto your side. And that's fine.
Sure,
they've
put some blame as long as we're considering the full context of it.
You can't keep blaming Trump for everything that happens.
Where's the blame
it's not blaming Trump. It's considering the.
All right, let me bring in.
This is something that the left does, I guess, to go after low IQ people. They try to compare our economy to the rest of the world, saying, "Oh, we're doing way better than everybody else." You know, that's kind of like comparing, peak Shaq versus a middle school basketball player here. That's what you're comparing, and that's your metrics? Oh, we're forgetting the facts about it. Let's give it all the context. Yeah, let's give it all the context. The economy that Donald Trump handed over to Joe Biden was doing well. It was well on its way to recovery, right? We were almost there from recovery. Donald Trump handed over a great economy, 1.4% inflation, which was low. We still haven't got back to that yet, as a matter of fact. And inflation rose a year after Biden came into office. What does that tell you? That's not Trump's fault. By no means. We had a supply chain problem, and the Secretary of Transportation was on parental leave, for crying out loud. He was just gone, nowhere to be found. And we have this supply chain problem going on. They did nothing to stop inflation from rising, and then they want to try to blame it on Trump. They want to try to say, oh, well, inflation was 9% when I took office. No, it was a year after that. Joe Biden comes out and lies to everybody. They've been saying the economy was great forever. And now they're having to deal with the reality that people aren't buying it anymore. They go to the grocery store and they can't afford the stuff that they used to be able to afford with no problem. They tell you, the American people, that your wages have come up to meet inflation. I'm sorry, 30% increase in wages? I think not. That is not true. Then they want to talk about the debt and all this. Oh, Donald Trump raised the debt by $7 trillion. Well, you know what? You look at the freaking numbers, right? The debt at the end of 2020 was $28 trillion. It is now almost $36 trillion. It was $22 trillion when Trump came into office. Yeah, so they're getting close to spending about the same. The national debt, they raised it by about the same amount. But you know what? One major difference is Donald Trump had a global pandemic that he had to deal with, and Joe Biden, that pandemic was pretty much over by the time he took office, as a matter of fact. The vast majority of that pandemic was over, and then he comes in and starts spending like freaking crazy, right? If you look at the debt numbers year to year to year, right, the debt hardly went up any until 2020, and then it shot up $5 trillion in 2020. What does that tell you? That money was spent on the pandemic. He sent out billions and billions of dollars to companies to keep them afloat. That's what Donald Trump had to do. He had to deal with the bulk of that pandemic. Biden comes in and just messes everything up with garbage policies, garbage spending, and they want to tout the American Rescue Plan that added another $2 trillion instantly to the debt. That's insane. These people are blind to the facts. And if you want 4 more years of the last 4 years, go ahead and vote for those people. But I think that's ridiculous. It's absurd on its face, and it's starting to show up in the polls. The polls are swinging for Trump, and good on Trump. We need Trump back. We don't need Kamala Harris, right? Kamala Harris starts talking about price gouging, conflating inflation with price gouging. Do you want somebody that conflates inflation with price gouging? That's ridiculous. That's the stupidest thing I think I've ever heard to want to talk about. Come out with price controls. Are you freaking kidding me? And then they want to say it's price gouging. That it's just the corporations doing this. No, it's inflation doing this from garbage policy, printing of dollars by the barrel, for crying out loud. Like, nothing but printing dollars. That's all they have done. That is all they've done, is damage this economy. And it's not just that. It's everything they've done. They've opened our freaking southern border and allowed 15 million criminal aliens to come into this country. Although the official numbers are 10, but they don't know about the gotaways because you can't put a hard number on gotaways. That's just the estimates. It's just nuts. Then, the lawfare, for crying out loud. They want to talk about Donald Trump's the threat to democracy. I think not, good sir. When the president of the United States comes in and silences voices on social media claiming it's disinformation. That's garbage. That's BS. People want to get out there and state their opinions. They can do so without the government silencing their voice. Oh, well, that's disinformation. No, that's an opinion. And you most certainly have the right to voice your opinion. And it's only conservatives that are getting banned. Oh, imagine that. That's weird. They're criticizing the government, and then they get banned. No, it must be just coincidence. What president of the United States has violated the First Amendment so egregiously? None. None other than Joe Biden. What president of the United States has sicked his Department of Justice on a former president, for crying out loud, for challenging the results of an election? Legitimately, by the way. Everything Donald Trump did was through the courts or through the states. Legitimate. As a matter of fact. But what the Democrats did was very, very illegitimate. Right? Going around changing the rules, changing the laws right before the election, right in the 11th hour, not notifying the other side of these rule changes, and then abusing those rule changes to the fullest extent, and then crying foul when Donald Trump wants to challenge that in court. Then, when he does challenge that in court, they say, oh, well, that's illegal. He tried to illegally overturn the election. No, he tried to challenge your freaking dumbass rule changes. That's what he did. Because you want to bring in a bunch of mailed-in ballots at 3 o'clock in the morning on after Election Day and think that those are supposed to be legitimately counted? No, I'm sorry. You must be living in a dream world. Like, what planet did you parachute in from to think that we can count ballots after Election Day? That's ridiculous. That goes against the Constitution. The Constitution dictates a single day for the election, not election month. None of that. At midnight, what is it, the Tuesday after the first Monday of November, which is kind of convoluted, but yeah, whatever. It is what it is. But it's not the Wednesday and the Thursday and the Friday also. It's the Tuesday after the first Monday of November. That's it. You don't get to, oh crap, Donald Trump won. We need to drum up a bunch of ballots. No, you can't do that. I'm sorry. Donald Trump got more votes than any other incumbent president in American history, and he still lost somehow. That's because Democrats sent hordes of activists to go out and force people, not force, but, harass people to vote by mail because of COVID. Right? That's ridiculous. Ballot harvesting should be illegal everywhere, but certain states allow it, and that's what we have to fight against. That's garbage. That's ridiculous. We should have a standard set of rules all the way across the board. Although I understand that's trying to nationalize the elections, and it has its pros and it has its cons. I think it has its more cons than anything. However, I do believe that these states should take the model, like say Florida or Texas or any of these other states that can have the results on election night. Right? You got these other states that take days, in some cases weeks, like Arizona's talking about it could be a couple of weeks before they get the results of the election. How come a state with a far larger population can get the results and get it in on election night, but Arizona can't do that? I wonder why that is. Oh, it's because Democrats are running the state over there. That's ridiculous, folks. It's outright ridiculous, and it's no surprise that they're trying to cheat the system again. We've looked at all the stories I've covered, so if you're new around here, you haven't seen my channel before, go through my video archive. I've got several stories of the shadow campaign, folks. Democrats changing rules, changing laws. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and spit one of them right now. The other day, the DOJ sued Virginia to keep non-citizens on the ballot. How ridiculous is that? And you know what their argument is? Oh, well, some of those people may have ticked the wrong box. That's why they got booted in the first place, because when they went to the DMV and got registered to vote, when you go to the DMV and get a driver's license, they ticked a box that said non-citizen. And the DOJ is saying that, oh, well, they may have ticked the wrong box, so you got to put them back on. Why? Why, when Virginia gave these people notification that they were being removed from the voter rolls, sent notification out saying you have 14 days to come in and tell us otherwise if you're a citizen. What's the problem with that? That's common sense. but the DOJ sued. You used your taxpayer dollars to put these people back on the voter rolls. That's just one story. That's not to speak of all the other stories from all the other states that I've covered. I've got many on my archive, y'all. Many. And that's not the lawsuits to keep Democrats off of the presidential ballot. That's ridiculous. Yeah, it's Democrats. As a matter of fact, if you're a Democrat, they probably, and you donated, they probably used some of your donations to make less democracy for you. That's what they did. They sued every candidate, not just in the Democratic Party, but they sued like Jill Stein to keep her off the ballot in many states. She's not even in the Democratic Party. She's in the Green Party, for crying out loud. They sued RFK Jr., who ran as an independent, to keep him off the ballot. And it's not just a one-off, right? It was every single freaking state they sued to keep him off the ballot. And Jill Stein, and Cornel West, and Dean Phillips, and many other people too. I just don't have their names attached to my memory right off. But they're making less democracy for you, and then saying Trump's the threat to democracy. They're violating your First Amendment rights and saying Trump's the threat to democracy. They're sending your taxpayer dollars to fund war on the other side of the world and saying Trump's the threat to democracy. I think they've got things backwards there, folks. I think they've got it quite backwards, and it makes no sense to me, but I think I've made my point quite clear, y'all. Y'all do me that big favor, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this debate down in the comments section. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all stay tuned, and y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.